Night presses heavy over the North Sea, thick, metallic and trembling with the promise of violence. A cold wind drags itself across the water like a wounded animal, leaving ripples that shine under the thin slice of moon. Far away, so distant they seem like ghosts, 3 German warships cut through the blackness, Scharnhorst, Gneisenau, and the heavy cruiser Prinz Eugen. Their hulls groan softly, as if protesting the madness they've been ordered into. Inside the bridge of the Scharnhorst, Kapitän Hoffmann stands rigid, his breath fogging the thick glass. He grips his gloves so tightly the leather creaks. This is suicide, he tells himself, but only in the safety of his silent mind. Out loud he says nothing. No one does. Every officer feels the same cold hand around the throat. Hitler's order is final. Operation Cerberus is underway, a sprint through the English Channel, the most heavily watched stretch of water in the world. A radio operator wipes sweat from his forehead. The room smells of hot wires and damp wool. Somewhere below deck, an engine coughs and roars back to life, shaking the floor with a deep animal growl. Outside, the waves hit the bow in bursts of white spray, stinging like needles when the wind pushes them through the cracks of the ventilation vents. Hoffmann reaches into his coat pocket. His fingers brush against the small wooden cross his daughter carved for him before he left Kiel. The wood is smooth, warm from his touch, a reminder of promises whispered in kitchens far from the sea. He closes his eyes for half a second, just half, long enough to feel fear settle behind his ribs. When he opens them, the channel waits ahead, dark, silent, and hungry, and the ships keep going as if fate itself is pulling them forward. The 3 warships push deeper into the night, moving fast enough that the wind becomes a living thing, snapping at coats, rattling loose metal, screaming across the decks like a warning no one wants to hear. Inside the Gneisenau, Oberleutnant Riedel descends a narrow staircase, gripping the cold railing as the ship tilts gently. The air grows warmer, denser. The scent of oil, sweat, and steel settles thick in his lungs. Somewhere a mechanic curses as a wrench slips and clatters across the grated floor. The noise echoes like a gunshot. Riedel feels the vibration of the engines in his teeth. It's a constant reminder of the gamble. They're all trapped. Inside, one miscalculation, one British radar sweep, one torpedo, and the channel would swallow them whole. He stops at a junction, listening to the distant hum of voices. Men are whispering. They always whisper on nights like this. They say the RAF is patrolling near Dover tonight. And we won't make it. Not all the way through. Keep your voice down. They can feel fear, you know, officers. Riedel pretends not to hear. He walks on, boots thudding in a steady rhythm. If they knew how afraid I was, he thinks, they'd whisper louder. On the Prinz Eugen, the mood is no different. A gunner named Wachtel sits on a crate near the aft batteries, rubbing a coin between his fingers. It's a Reichsmark, worn smooth. His father carried it in the last war. For luck, he'd said. But the metal feels strangely heavy tonight. Heavy like a goodbye. The ships maintain radio silence. No light, no signal, no voice to betray their movement. Only the engines speak, and even they sound hesitant. Every mile forward feels like a theft, a stolen breath from an enemy who hasn't noticed yet, but soon will. Very soon. Dawn approaches slowly, hesitant, pale, uncertain. A thin gray glow leaks across the horizon, brushing the water with silver. The 3 warships, still gliding at breakneck speed, feel the shift instantly. Night had been a cloak. Daylight will be a mirror. On the Scharnhorst, Kapitän Hoffmann steps onto the outer bridge. The cold hits him first, sharp, clean, slicing across his cheeks like a blade rinsed in ice. Then he hears it. A subtle change in the wind. A faint buzzing, far away but growing. Aircraft. His stomach tightens. A lookout shouts, "Southwest! Movement, multiple contacts!" Binoculars rise in a synchronized wave. Officers lean forward as if that slight tilt could change fate. Hoffmann steadies his breath and focuses. The sky is thickening with specks, dark dots multiplying against the pale morning. For a second, just a second, every man on the ship freezes. Then the shock comes. Not British, German, Luftwaffe fighters, dozens of them emerging from the clouds like sharp-winged guardians. Their engines roar in tight formation, slicing the morning air with brutal confidence. An escort force, larger, stronger, more aggressive than anything the sailors expected. It feels impossible, even reckless. A gunner whispers, "They came for us." The disbelief cracks his voice. No one had told the crews the full extent of the plan. No one had dared imagine such audacity. fighters weaving through British airspace, carving a protective corridor through the channel, risking everything to shield the ships below. The aircraft descend slightly, enough for the sailors to see the glint of the sun on their canopies. One pilot tilts his wings left, then right, a silent salute. Below, the men stare upward, stunned. The air smells suddenly different, like hot engines and new hope. For the first time since leaving Brest, someone murmurs through trembling lips, Maybe we have a chance." The morning thickens into a tense, trembling day. The channel is no longer a black void. It is a living corridor of danger. Every wave seems sharper. Every gust of wind carries the phantom edge of British radar. Yet something has changed on the ships. The sailors move differently now. Shoulders are a little straighter. Steps land with more purpose. The presence of the Luftwaffe above them has cracked open a fragile kind of courage. On the Prinz Eugen, Wachtel stands by the starboard rail, letting the cold spray coat his face. He watches the fighter planes trace white lines across the sky like chalk drawn by impatient gods. The sight feels unreal. We're too exposed, he thinks, too daring. Yet he can't deny the tiny ember burning inside his chest. Beside him, his friend Adler unwraps a small piece of dark bread, dry, crumbling, barely food. He splits it silently. Wachtel hesitates. "Keep it," he says, but Adler shakes his head. "If we die today," Adler whispers, "eat something first." A bitter laugh escapes Wachtel. He takes the half, chewing slowly. It tastes like dust and home and fear. Below deck, mechanics fight fatigue, faces smeared with oil. Their hands tremble not from cold but from responsibility. Every pipe tightened, every bolt checked feels like stitching the ship's torn destiny back together. Radio operators, forbidden to speak to the world outside, huddle near their silent machines. They nibble on cold potatoes, the metallic taste of ration tins lingering on their tongues. One young operator, Cruz, keeps a small notebook tucked into his jacket. He opens it now, scribbling in cramped handwriting. We are racing through the lion's mouth, and yet it feels worse to stop. Movement is survival. Stillness is death. Above him, the ship shudders, engines pushing harder, water splitting violently beneath the bow. The channel watches, narrowing with every mile. By midday, the channel seems to tighten around them, as if the water itself resents their passage. The British coastline, dark, jagged, suspicious, lurks closer than any German sailor ever expected to see it. Every man feels the invisible gaze of enemy guns crawling across his skin. On the Gneisenau, Oberleutnant Riedel moves through the anti-air battery stations, checking crew positions. The bitter scent of gunpowder clings to the air, even though no shots have been fired yet. It mixes with the salty sting of seawater, forming a taste like metal on the tongue. Anticipation, dread, adrenaline. One of the youngest gunners, barely 18, grips the handles of his flak cannon so hard his knuckles bleach to bone white. Riedel kneels beside him. "First time this close to England?" he asks quietly. The boy nods but keeps his eyes forward. I thought it would feel like victory," he whispers. "But it feels like someone is waiting for me out there." Riedel has no answer. He places a steadying hand on the boy's shoulder, feeling the tremor that runs through him. Above them, the Luftwaffe escorts dip low again, engines snarling like furious wasps. For an instant, sunlight flashes off their wings, turning them into silver daggers slicing through the mist. But not everyone finds comfort in the aerial guardians. In the radio room, Cruz stares at the blank receiver, haunted. If the British intercept us, if they hear even a whisper, his fingers hover over the controls, itching with the urge to send a message home, to say goodbye, to speak his daughter's name aloud. But silence is their only protection. He closes his eyes, imagines her small hand gripping his sleeve. "Papa, bring me a seashell from the ocean." A seashell? He almost smiles. Here he is, racing through death's doorway, and she wants a seashell. Outside, alarms clang, sharp, sudden, slicing through the air. The first British response has been spotted on the horizon. The alarm's echo has barely faded when the horizon sharpens. Gray smudges, resolving into shapes, then silhouettes, then unmistakable wings. British aircraft, fast, low, cutting across the sky with predatory purpose. On the Scharnhorst, Kapitän Hoffmann feels the air change before he hears the engines, a strange tightening, like the sea itself holding its breath. He leans forward, gripping the cold rail as the Luftwaffe breaks formation overhead, splitting into hunting lines. A young sailor beside him murmurs, "They found us?" His voice is small, swallowed instantly by the wind. The British fighters close rapidly. the growl of their engines swelling into a roar that vibrates through the steel deck. Hoffman watches them approach, dark shapes against the pale afternoon, and something unexpected rises in him. Not fear, not yet, but clarity. So this is the moment, the turning point, the test of Hitler's madness. The first exchange of gunfire cracks open the sky. German escorts dive, streaking past the warships with trails of vapor twisting behind them. Their machine guns chatter in rapid bursts, tiny flashes against the clouds. The British respond with ruthless precision, weaving through the chaos like wolves snapping at a cornered herd. On the Prince Eugen, Wachtel feels the ship vibrate under him as anti-air batteries spin into position. His hands sweat around the cool metal grips, breath coming in quick, sharp gasps. "Hold! Hold! Wait for the angle!" His commander shouts, voice hoarse. The smell hits him next. Burned fuel carried by the wind. Bitter and hot, stinging his eyes, a British fighter streaks overhead. Close enough that he sees the pilot's face for a fraction of a heartbeat. Focused. Furious, human. For Wachtel, that flash of humanity is paralyzing. He looks like me, he thinks. Another explosion rattles the deck. Shrapnel screams against steel. The sea heaves, the sky burns, and for a moment the world becomes nothing but noise, fear, and fragments of faith. Operation Cerberus is no longer a daring plan. It is survival, minute by minute, breath by breath.